Hello and welcome to the latest lockdown episode of the Sheffield Hopcast. If we all look a little bit flustered, we've had a few minor technical problems to mar the start of the episode, but I think we're just about there and sorted now. It's a bit of a special episode for us. It is our Moonshine edition of the show. And if you are watching the video version, then you will have already spotted, but we are joined by Dan Baxter, who is the sales director at Abbeydale. Hi, Dan.
Hello there.
I like the fact that you are fully branded in full moonshine wear. That's great. We will love it. We will chat to Dan properly in a minute. Normally, we go around, kind of introduce ourselves and the beer that we've picked, but we're all drinking moonshine this week. So instead, this is almost like a retro feature now. It's the end of the month, so we are going to go back to beer of the month. This was Laura's idea, so let's go to Laura first.
Okay, that's fair. So I think I nearly did the classic thing where I pick two, but I have narrowed it down to just one, which is a beer that I drank the other night when we were doing a virtual collaboration catch-up with Mondo Brewing, who are based down in Battersea in London. And they've taken part in the All Together initiative, which is something that Other Half set up. I believe they shared a recipe to brew a New England IPA that various breweries all around the world have made that same recipe and released it. And I'm not normally a big New England IPA fan, but it was just really, really pillowy is the word I'm going to use to describe it. Really lovely and juicy, nice and soft, but still easy drinking. So it had a really nice level of sweetness, but wasn't too sticky. So I'm going to go with that. And okay. Mondo are great. You don't see their beers up in Sheffield that often, but they're delivering nationwide as well. So I'd recommend checking them out if they're a brewery you're not familiar with.
Can I just request the dictionary definition of the word pillowy? Is it soft, as in to be like a pillow?
Yeah, soft.
Yeah.
Like your pillowy kind of mashed potato.
I'm going to add that to I have a board of good words up here that has honk, dollop, wangle and splat on it. Pillowy is going on the board. While I do that, Adam, what's your beer of the month?
I think I might have mentioned enjoying this last week, and it is the Urchin Brune by St. Mars of the Desert, a Belgian-inspired dark beer with orange peel, 5.6%, I think. I think the reason I'm picking that is that I've kind of had a lot of sort of supermarket beers in the last month, and that was one that I picked up, probably not expecting to enjoy it, just mainly just getting it because it was like a different beer I could pick up. But I was so impressed with it. And I think a few people have said how impressed they were and surprised because it's not really their normal style. But yeah, if you can still get one and you're not a dark beer fan, just get one. It's really, really good. It's really, really good.
Good. Yeah, you were singing its praises last week, so good choice. Sean, you've had to raid your secret stash of beers a couple of times this month. So you've had some crackers. What's your beer of the month?
I'm conscious at the moment that I've yawned twice since we started. I've just been on a 2-hour hike around local fields and things, and so half an hour ago I was just getting in, so just timed it right. So apologies for that, but it does take you back to my beer of the month. 2 weeks ago, another scorching Saturday, me and Deborah did the same thing. Of course, we're working Monday to Friday, now closed currently Saturday and Sunday. So we went for a long walk, scorching hot, got back, and we shared an Asho 500ml bottle. It's called the Fabric. It's a Simcoe Golden Ale, and it was absolutely glorious. We were parched, we were spitting feathers, as they say in these parts, but it was absolutely glorious. And we've just done the same again today, hence why I'm a little bit tired, but I've got one in the fridge to have after we have our moonshine. So I'm going to revisit my beer of the month shortly.
Good stuff. We'll crack open our moonshines in a second. I'm James, for anyone that doesn't know, and for my beer of the month, I kind of already did this last week because I did say if we were to pick a beer of the month, it would be Abbeydale's Wanderer New England IPA. I've got to stand by it because it's the best beer I've had this month. So, yeah, there we go. Which leads us very nicely on to Dan, who is sales director at Abbeydale and is joining us this week to talk, well, all things moonshine and I guess all things Abbeydale generally. First of all, Dan, have you got a beer of the month that you want to tell us about?
I've been drinking a lot of Argia during lockdown, to be honest, but it's got to be our Deliverance collaboration with Yakima. It's definitely, well, it's my beer of the year, really. The can sold out a few weeks back now, kind of the first week in lockdown, but we've still got loads of kegs. So as some pubs are trialing takeout beer, I find myself keep going back and getting growlers of.
It's not a bad beer to be plagued with loads of kegs of it. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. Right then. So I think the time has come for us to crack open our cans of moonshine, and as we do this, I'd like to just point out that I don't have the T-shirt, but do have a Abbeydale branded glass, courtesy of Laura. Thank you very much. Adam is fully branded. I suspect Laura is as well. We can't quite see. Yes.
I did ask, did we?
I'm twinning with Dan today.
I've got a Beavertown T-shirt on. Sorry.
Oh. Well, lovely.
Back in the independent days.
So Dan, I mean, we it feels like an absolute age ago now when it was back on the 1st of April, wasn't it, when the idea of moonshine in cans first kind of appeared, and there was this big sort of like, is it a joke? Is it not a joke? Is it real? Is it not real? And, we were a little bit fortunate that we could kind of bug Laura until she kind of gave us a little bit more information, but it became apparent in kind of the couple of weeks after that it was real. Just talk us through, I mean, I'm guessing that in normal times, it's a huge seller for Abbeydale. So just kind of, talk us through the sort of the process that led you to the point of releasing it in cans. Was it something that was on the agenda anyway?
It was, yeah. It was. We've obviously been canning for a number of years now, using mobile contract canners coming to the brewery. We bought our own canning line about six months ago, and yeah, to be honest, it was always the plan once we'd nailed the spec, if you like, and how we're going to present it in a can. To go for it. With lockdown happening, we decided to create a little bit more of a buzz, I think it was timed really quite well.
I mean, absolutely. It would, I would absolutely believe you if you told me that it was something that was literally just off the back of lockdown, because timing wise, it couldn't really have fallen much better. Obviously, it came out kind of 2-3 weeks ago now. How's it been going from a sales point of view?
Oh, really? Yes, it's been going great guns. We sold all 320 odd cases, I think, in the first 2 days of pre-order. I think, was that right? Is that right, Laura?
Yeah, it was all before the time came for us to actually send it out. It had all gone, but we had another batch behind it ready to go. That I don't think any of us really expected to need quite so quickly, but we were pleased that we did.
One of my pet hates, ever since I've worked at the brewery, is when you've established a core beer, is to not run out of it. Is to keep it always on your sales list. There's nothing worse than creating a buzz about something, getting people interested, showing people where they can buy it, to then fall over and not being able to to supply the demand that you've created. It's just a wasted effort. So it does require a hell of a lot of planning, forward thinking and planning.
But
Yeah.
I think,
Sorry,
Go
I'm
on.
right in thinking that you were kind of waiting until you got your own canning line put in before you kind of committed to putting like the big name Abbeydale beer into can.
Yeah, we had to expedite it. There's a lot of. I think I was the main holder back, if you like, on the board. I really wanted us to get the spec right. Fully aware that you can't emulate in a can the experience of beer coming through a sparkler, through a beer engine. So I think with COVID and lockdown, we just had to be a little bit brave and just go for it and just see what people thought.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen loads on social media of people kind of bigging it up. Is Adam? I think you've already had moonshine out of a can, haven't you,
Had
Sean?
one.
Have you before? 'Cause this is my first experience of moonshine out of a can.
Yeah, I've probably had 5 cans of it now, so that's a good indication that I'm really enjoying it. Deborah particularly is a fan, and in fact, I did my normal trick this week. Deborah brought a can home for herself midweek. I meant to bring a can home for the Hopcast on Friday, forgot, so I've now had to pinch Deborah's can for the Hopcast. So I'm a naughty boy, and I've been in trouble for that, unfortunately. But stuff it, I'm really enjoying it.
I think I'm
In
traditional.
our Hopcast operational group that we all message each other in, at several points in the last week, Sean, you've said, "Oh, I won't forget to bring can home." No, it's fine. Don't worry about it. I won't forget, and you still managed to forget. That's astonishing.
Yeah, I knew that there was one in the fridge, so that slightly took the pressure off me. Interestingly, actually, the last pint. This is a good question for everybody. The last pint of cask beer I had was in fact moonshine, and so it was back in the Milton Arms in Elsica, a true North pub not far away from us, and they sell Heathen and moonshine on as well, moonshine on cask. So my last pint pre-lockdown in a pub of cask beer was moonshine. So I think that completes the symmetry to come to can now.
One of the things I was going to kind of ask is just, I mean, we have talked about moonshine on the podcast before a few times. It's a beer that I don't think we've ever drunk on the Hopcast because we've just not really had the opportunity, with us generally kind of being can and bottle sort of centric. I mean, I guess it sounds a bit fluffy kind of asking this, but it's sort of like, what moonshine means to us all individually, because it is such a mainstay in the Sheffield, beer scene. It's one of those kind of go-to beers that we've, all talked about on various kind of occasions. And I touched on this a few weeks back, whereby for me, for many, many years, the Lescar was my local, and it's... over the last kind of 2-3 years, it's got a little bit better in terms of its choice of kind of keg beers and stuff like that. But moonshine has always been there, and it's always been on that same pump around the back side of the bar, right at the end. And it's always been the go-to. So it's sort of like, you walk in through the front door and curl your way around the bar to see what beers they've got. And it doesn't really matter if there's nothing you want, because you've always got moonshine sat there at the end. And that was always my kind of like, no, there's nothing that's going to be better than moonshine, so I'm going to have it. So for years, for like 10 years of the Lescar being my local, it meant that moonshine was kind of my go-to beer, and it's so strange drinking it anywhere else, because it's just the taste of it I just associate with the Lescar. Very interesting drinking it out of can, because the character of it is definitely different, isn't it? It does have, because obviously it's carbonated, but it does feel different. I think, Dan, you're right in kind of saying, it's difficult, if not impossible, to sort of emulate the experience of drinking a cask beer in can. I mean, I don't know if this is more something that Laura would kind of pick up on, but what's the kind of the process where you decide that, you're going to take this beer that's been a cask beer for, years, decades, and put it in can, kind of figuring out, actually, how do we go about doing that? What do you need to do to a beer recipe to actually make it suitable to go into can?
The recipe is exactly the same. as the cask beer. It's just the process that is very slightly different, because it has to be fined before it goes into tank, I believe, before we can carbonate it. But it is, I think I'm right in saying that it's carbonated to a lower level than the majority of our other beers that go into can. So it's intended to be sort of a little bit smoother and not quite as fizzy. But recipe-wise, it's exactly the same. I think the only other thing that some people have picked up on that's a little bit different is because it's chilled down to be suitable for canning. And some people have been keeping it in the fridge. When it is in the fridge, it can have a very, very slight haze that develops to it. That's just literally from it being cold. So a few people have said, "Why is my moonshine cloudy?" But it's just because it's cold. So yeah,
No,
otherwise
enough.
it's exactly the same.
And it's all
Well,
this technical feedback that we're giving to the end users that we've really had to hone in on. And we cut our teeth on that with doing the mini kegs really in lockdown, trying to tell people that it's bright beer. I think Laura used the term a lot. It's like beer festival beer. But yeah, it's just getting the it's been able to make it clear to the customer exactly what it is, and it's the age-old moonshine like it always is, just slightly sparkled at the end.
Yeah, it's I could definitely see how getting the temperature of it right is really important, because mine came out of the fridge probably about 40-50 minutes ago, and as I've been drinking it, I've noticed the taste kind of changes a little bit as it kind of settles to not quite room temperature, but as the temperature of it rises a little bit, the softness really starts to come through. I'm going to stop short of calling it pillowy, but there's definitely a softness there to it, which is is kind of familiar, because I always think of moonshine as being just very, very drinkable. And I mean, the word kind of session beer is thrown about all over the place at the moment, but for me, moonshine sort of defines it, because it is a beer that you could, and I've done this, sit in a pub and just drink pint after pint after pint after pint. You're not gonna get so drunk that you feel ill doing that, because it isn't a strong beer, and it's just sessionable. It's just a really drinkable beer. I kind of talked a little bit about kind of my own sort of thoughts and experiences when it comes to moonshine. I'll kind of throw that open to everyone else if anyone wants to bowl anything in. Adam?
Yeah. When I first moved to Sheffield 14 years ago, I moved it up to Fulwood. So our local pub was the Rising Sun. To be honest, back then I wasn't heavily into any particular style of beer really, but I would drink cask beer, not really thinking about it. I'll drink lager and stuff. But it's probably there where I kind of got to it was kind of Abbeydale and Bradfield were the big two players in Sheffield. They still probably are really. And you were kind of either a Bradfield Farmer's Blonde or you were a moonshine kind of person. But I mean, I've been able to get Bradfield beers kind of by the bottle. There was always a bit of mystery surrounding Abbeydale, because it was like, it's got this kind of interesting name, and it's got this like the Ark logo thing. I'm thinking, where is this mysterious Abbeydale place? And I never really saw it, but kind of living the other side of town, and knew where Bradfield was. But yeah, I was to be honest, I was more of a deception man back then. I kind of liked, and that was still like a seasonal beer back then. I think it came out in like November or something. But yeah, it's always been around. It's kind of interesting that even when before then, it probably reached to places like Wentworth, the George and Dragon stock a lot of like Abbeydale beers, and I think that was probably somewhere I'd go before I moved to Sheffield that would probably had a bit more cask beer than Waffle Pond Erne did, apart from the Weatherspoons. But yeah, I've got fond memories of it all the way through my Sheffield kind of life, last 15 years. It's amazing that it's just kind of come out. It's took that long for it to kind of surface as a small pack beer. But yeah, I did have one last week, and I think I did the wrong thing. I think I kept it too cold. And like I say, probably not had a pint of moonshine for quite a while, and being more of a deception man, I went 100%. But this is disappearing I did the opposite. I didn't take it out the fridge. I just didn't put it in the fridge until quite late. So it's just chilled it slightly. But I'm really, really enjoying this one. It's beautiful. Yeah.
Fantastic. That's lovely to hear.
I think because I used to, before me and Jim met, both of our families separately used to go to the Kashmir Curry House, just up from the Wicker. And it's somewhere that, me and Jim had always gone like separately as kids. And then when we got together, it was one of the first places that we used to like go into for meals and things. So we'd go to the East House pub across the road where they'd do a 4-pint pitcher of moonshine that you could take across and have with your curry. And I also found a photo dating from 2004, I believe, of me and Jim in Corporation and Jim wearing one of the old moonshine t-shirts. So obviously long before this, that we'd work there. So yeah.
Wow.
I could absolutely imagine you two in Corporation.
I'm quite interested, actually. In terms of its feedback, I'm interested. Obviously, being quite a classic, traditional, I bet there was a lot of people thinking, "Oh, I don't want that. I want to keep it in cask. I want it to be my kind of, like the locals kind of pint." How have like the really traditional market taken it? Have you had much feedback from those kind? I don't want to kind of sort of pigeonhole any type of person, but you could probably know what kind of person I'm talking about. But I wonder if how they've taken to it.
Yeah, we haven't had. I don't think we have had a single person saying they wish it was in a bottle.
That's interesting.
Had a few people wondering if we're doing it in bottle as well. But we haven't really had. It's actually quite surprised me that nobody seems to have been particularly vocal about the fact that we've canned it. Everyone seems to be the feedback that we've largely been getting is it tastes like moonshine, and people. I suppose
Sean will be the person who will eventually get the best answer to that, won't you?
Adam, yeah, I think the timing of it, for those reasons, has been fantastic because it's not available on cask anywhere other than perhaps some takeouts. Rich and Laura might have it on still sometimes on their takeouts down at Archer Road, but because it's not available to compare with and contrast with, and not available to go and slurp in a sunny beer garden, there is no alternative. If you want moonshine, you're having it in a can, pal, and that's you done. Thank you very much. or milady, of course, as well. So I think that's worked to its benefit, not having the comparison. It is just available currently in can.
So Sean, when you do get your kind of customers coming in, so you're not, people might not be quite as educated, but you're looking for some beers for the dad or for the husband, and they were quite like a traditional beer and probably looking for that, as Laura Bainbridge called it, and like a brown bottle beer. Are you going to be able to? Will you find that easy enough to think to kind of go, this is a likeness to this kind of beer, but it's kind of much more modernly packaged?
We opened back in November 2013, and so we're coming up to 7 years at the end of this year. And the question that we have been asked the most, and it must be a billion times now, must be a billion, is have you got any moonshine? And so for it to have been launched whilst we're closed is unfortunate, but we'll be back open soon, of course. And so I think it will be incredibly easy to sell. Easy. But we have been asked that question. It probably that question gets asked perhaps 2-3 times every week. Somebody comes in, have you got any moonshine? And they're looking around the shop for it, and we have to explain they've got to go to the pub. So we can now say, yeah, it's over there.
If that's your most asked question, is the second most asked question, do you sell Hobgoblin?
Not really, no.
You've dashed my hopes there.
Initially, we would ask those types of questions, but the people have become accustomed to the types of stuff that we sell, and so the only things we get odd questions of Christmas time. People will come in expecting that we sell Advocaat or Snowball, stuff like that. They just see bottles and see glass and see shiny things and think they've got to take a punt on it. But we rarely get asked for hobgoblin at all now. I can't remember the last time.
I'm not going to say that that's a shame, because it's not. Just following up, just very briefly on something that you said in there, Sean, because of course we are sort of edging closer to the next set of, I don't really know what to call them, kind of relaxations of lockdown, and we know that there are going to be shops kind of reopening from the 1st of June onwards. There's kind of 2 stages of shops reopening. And you have news, Sean, do you not?
Yeah, the Moor Market could actually have stayed open throughout, but would have been only able to have essential shops open within it, so chose to close. But the Moor Market contacted all traders last week. The intention is to reopen along with other non-essential stores on the 15th of June. Each trader next week has got a one-to-one meeting with Sheffield Council and the market management to discuss COVID-19 safety measures for both individual stores and for the market in general. And so 2 weeks on Monday, 99% certain that the shop will reopen, and will be nowhere near back to normal, of course. That might even take 12 months, but it gives us another strand and another way of selling beer, and an even bigger way of selling lots of moonshine.
Cool. So is the plan that, I know you've obviously been doing a big old trade in kind of delivery and stuff like that. Will the shop reopening replace that, or will you continue with that, or are you not sure yet?
No, in the short term, we will not be able to deliver in the week leading up to opening, because we'll have to do full clean. So the shop is empty, it is a shell, and so needs some safety measures in place and so on. So we've got another full-time member of staff coming back off furlough a week on Monday. So we'll spend a week prepping the shop and filling that, getting it back to its beautiful best. And then from the 15th, we'll have the shop open. We'll still be continuing with local deliveries. There may be a slight tweak, but we would be stupid to shut that straight off, because we're not going to be able to serve as many people, of course, safely as we would have done previously. Sometimes on a Saturday afternoon, there might have been 7 people in our shop, all piling beer on the counter. Laura and Jim and Uncle Trev used to be part of that Saturday afternoon pile into the shop, but that won't happen, of course. So we'll have all strands working from the 15th.
Brill, sounds good. Dan, a very sort of general question here. What has the last few weeks and the last kind of 3 months or whatever it is now, what has it been like for Abbeydale generally? Because I know obviously when things very, very quickly sort of turned at the back end of March, and it became apparent that we got a very serious situation on our hands, and I know that the beer world kind of really feared for the worst for a little while. What generally has it been like for you?
It's been emotional, really. It's a huge testament to the staff that we've got. Really, it's only down to them. It's not the products that we're selling. It's not the business model that we've got. It's the staff, 100%. When Boris made his announcement on that Monday, and said that only key workers are allowed to continue working, etc., etc. We didn't stop. We went straight. We knew that delivery drivers were classed as key workers. It was still an unknown whether we could have done what we were doing, but with very prompt social distancing measures that we put in place, we had several emergency Abbeydale Cobra meetings with the board. The key was keeping staff informed of what we were doing. Furloughed 50%, something like that, of our 26 strong, and we took it straight to an online retail operation. We had I think 50 mini kegs up on our mezzanine. We blew the dust off them and give them a wash, and we started filling the perishable products in our cold store, which is obviously the cask ale, and they all sold in a day. So yeah, it was just, and then it just grew from there with our very strong marketing comms that we were putting out, and quickly made a free delivery option. We priced it right, and all of a sudden we were all over Sheffield, just delivering to people's doorsteps. Everyone's got their own lockdown story, haven't they? Everyone's been going through their own thing. Mine was delivering beer on quiet Sheffield streets, brightening everyone's day up. I had the best time, the best job in the world. It was brilliant. I don't think many people can say that of their lockdown.
Good stuff.
But yeah,
good stuff.
It was fantastic.
I think as well the community of Sheffield has really got behind us, which has been, for me, kind of seeing all of that come in has been really humbling, actually. And it's not just Sheffield, like the amount of beer we've been sending further afield has taken me personally by surprise, especially with Moonshine. We've had a lot of people who, maybe students who were in Sheffield for uni who've since moved home, or people who've been on here for a trip and then moved away, who have been genuinely excited about being able to get Moonshine. In the first 6-pack we sold on the online shop went to Aberdeen, and we were like, "Where's that? How do they know about Moonshine? Where's that come from?" So yeah, it's been, yeah, it feels strange to say, like Dan said, it's been a really emotional, and it's seeing how people have kind of embraced it has been amazing, and not at all what I was expecting to come out of the last few months at all. But yeah.
My father-in-law knocked me up a sign to put on my roof rack. Just said Abbeydale Brewery shop, and that came down off my car. I think it was last week, and yeah, it was had a bit of a moment.
A moment that was quickly quashed when Dan then couldn't get it through the door to get it back into the office. So it's now proudly kind of in the entrance to the brewery.
It sounds like a beautiful moment that fast became a "you've been framed" moment. Yeah. So you could get 250 quid for that if you send it in. We are fast running out of time. We've only got a couple of minutes left. One other thing that I wanted to mention, well, that we all wanted to mention, which is in June we are going to be trying to do something a little bit different. Well, a little bit bigger is probably the best way of describing it. We actually hinted about this idea a few weeks ago, which actually I think it was Sean that first sort of came up with the idea midway through an episode, and then we've actually followed it through and come up with a bit of a concept for it, which is the first ever Sheffield Hopfest, which is over the course of a weekend. We are going to be doing a series of episodes, and the idea is that we want to get as many people on as possible enjoying a beer with us. So we're not entirely sure on the dates yet. We're not entirely sure on the format or anything like that. But what we are sure on is the fact that we want to get as many of you involved as possible. So before we kind of throw it all out on social media, we thought the fairest thing to do is to mention it on the podcast itself. So anyone who is a regular listener that thinks, yes, I want to be involved in that, I want to share a beer with them on Zoom, and be on one of those special sessions, So all you need to do is either drop us an email to beer@sheffieldhopcast.co.uk or drop us a direct message on Twitter and let us know who you are and that you would like to be involved. We'll confirm all the details as soon as we know them. And anyone that kind of gets in touch off the back of us mentioning it on the episode will get priority. And obviously we'll then kind of throw things open on social media for anyone else. But because you are a listener, you get first dibs. So beer@sheffieldhopcast.co.uk if you would like to be involved. We've literally only got about a minute or so left. So very quickly, final words on Moonshine before we do our selfie of the week. Adam?
I want another one. That's my...
That's good. That's more or less what I was
That's
going to
good.
say, which is
It's good
it's
'cause
so
there's some in the
Moorish, isn't
fridge.
it?
Yeah.
You just kind of, you have one, you think, I want another one now. Laura, I know that you're biased, but are you pleased with how Moonshine's come out in cans?
Yes, and I'm even more pleased that we're doing all the rest of the core range in can soon because I'm a big Daily Bread fan and that will be out soon too. But yeah, I've drank my whole can, which I don't normally get through in the pod. So yeah.
Brilliant. Sean?
The Moonshine episode will be long living in my memory because partway through it, I realised that I got my undies on back to front, and that's never happened ever before. But the button is at the back, because I just put my hand on my back there. So it will long live in my memory. A beautiful beer.
And what should have been a beautiful episode ruined in one fell swoop by Sean Clark. Brilliant. Dan, thank you ever so much for joining us. It's been a real pleasure having you with us. All that remains for us to do is for our Moonshine selfie. So cans up to the camera and glasses if they've still got any beer in them. And nice big smiles. And there we go. That's fantastic. Right, brilliant. Dan, thank you very much. And we will be back next week with another lockdown episode. We've got another guest that's coming on next week and another theme for our beers. So tune in next week to find out more about that. All right, cheers, guys. Thank you, everyone. See you all later.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.